So we were chatting a bit more, Prathamesh and me, privately, and he asked me a really, really great question. And I thought I'd just broadcast the question and the answer. So I'm going to rephrase the question a bit, Prathamesh. Correct me if I'm wrong, but here's the question. There's all these new technologies coming on all the time. There's like big data. There's okay, not it's not new, but you've got Kubernetes. You've got all the different stuff, right? And and how do you decide which one to focus on? That's the first part of the question. The second part of the question is, so I've been doing Java longer than Prathamesh has been alive, right? So how do I still manage to conjure up enthusiasm for Java after all these years, right? So both are really great questions. And first of all, the answer to the first question is that technologies come and go, and most of the time, if you find something you don't find interesting, you can ignore it, and after about 3 years, it'll be gone, and something else will take its place, right? so the
Yeah.
so so in IT, you've got a half-life of like 3 years. So after three
Okay.
years, half of everything that you knew has become redundant. And what I've done is um, I've managed really in my career to focus on the things which I find interesting. I don't care about stuff I don't find interesting. It's like I had a peek at Hibernate and that whole database object related layer. And if I actually did some coding before Hibernate came along that was in that direction. But I found it boring, like really boring, like mind, bone numbing boring. And so I just ignored it. And and then, if you ignore it long enough, it just sort of disappears or it becomes irrelevant or everybody else does it, so you can just ignore it. And so this is my advice: is pick the things which really you find interesting, which you find interesting. Forget about stuff you find boring, because the stuff you find boring, it'll just disappear and you can ignore it. And the stuff that's interesting, you're going to have the inner enthusiasm to actually dig into it and to spend nights doing it, like weekends doing it, right? That's what makes you. That's what will keep you going. So what I find interesting is, I'll tell you what I find interesting. I find interesting the Java language, like weird language things. Um, like how do you call, how do you initialize a variable before you call super, for example? How do you do that in Java? How do you like weird language things, and um, so like the Java puzzlers type of things, Java puzzlers book, which I did really badly in actually. um, but I find that fascinating. So a lot of my work in my newsletter was about that. But the part which I really find fascinating is concurrency and parallelism. So I've spent a lot of time researching that, and and I actually came off track a few times. For example, in I think 2021, yes, 21, I recorded two courses where I dug into the details of the Java concurrent library, array blocking queue and copy and read array list and array set. And I went into detail like no one's ever done. It's like 4 hours each, these courses. So you've got 8 hours of training on a minute subject that is like extremely specialized. And of course, I couldn't sell these things. I mean, some people bought it, but never made money back from what I've spent on it. And this year I decided I don't care. I don't care if no one buys it. I find it interesting. So I'm going to continue doing it. I'm going to continue because I find it interesting. And in the end, if no one buys it, I don't care because I've learned something and I've enjoyed it. So so that's my advice: is find things that you find interesting, that fascinate you, where you don't have a problem staying up all night to play with the technology, to spend weekends playing with the technology, so that you've got the interest, and then just see what happens. And usually, if you become an expert in a particular topic, you will you'll also become. It will also open up opportunities where you will be able to to get paid to do it. You know, but even if you don't, it doesn't matter.
Um, thanks, Dr. Hans. I think that's a really interesting answer that you gave to, ignore all the other things, that comes on daily basis, but just to focus on, what you like, and eventually it will pay off, on what you're doing,
It
and,
might, it
you
might
will be
not,
called
but
expert in it.
it might also not.
Yeah,
But who cares?
exactly. Yeah, 100%.
My father-in-law was a professional soccer player. He was the best in South Africa in 1971. He was Player of the
Okay,
Year in South Africa. He was really good, right? And
okay,
he got paid a good amount of money when he was young. Nothing like today, but a good amount of money. And I remember asking him once. I said, Gregory, when you were young, if they had not paid you to play soccer, would you still have played soccer? And he said, of course, obviously. Of course he would have played soccer. So, so if you want to become really good at programming, um, it's not enough to just do your job. 9 to 5 is not gonna cut it. You need to really get in there, and you need to spend your time. You know, when you wake up and you start thinking about the stuff that you find interesting, um, and become an expert at what you're doing. It could be anything. But this keeps your mind, I think, flexible enough so that you can actually find other things interesting as well. It doesn't mean you have to stick with one thing forever. You know, you can change it. Once you get bored of something, you do something else. It's fine. But it's the, you know, I don't like to say the word passion, because passion is overrated. It doesn't really bring you that much. But what I'm saying is that you want to find something which you don't find boring.